All right, everyone, we will go ahead and get started with today's first masterclass exclusive for McColly Real Estate. Thank you all so much for joining us. Whether you are a brand new agent who has never used SkySlope or this is a refresher for you, I'm very excited to have you on the session today. I did just place everyone on mute. We'll be recording the training session, so I want to make sure there's not too much background noise. I also sent over a quick message in the Zoom chat window just now. If you have questions while I'm going through the presentation, feel free to chat those questions over in the Zoom chat window. I'll get through those as we're going through the webinar. And then at the very end of the session, what I'll do is I will unmute everyone and we can walk through questions and kind of recap what we talked about thus far. To introduce myself, my name is Taylor Grossman. I am an enterprise account manager at SkySlope. I have been with the company for right about 3 years now, training brokerages from 10 agents all the way to 16,000 how to use SkySlope in their day-to-day businesses. So I'm very excited to, of course, be training the McColly team today. What we're going to be talking about in this masterclass exclusive is really just 3 simple steps that bring us back to the basics in SkySlope. We'll be working through a scenario of me working as an agent on a brand new listing, and we'll be completing these 3 simple steps. We'll talk about how you can complete your forms in SkySlope using the zip form integration. We'll talk about how you can get your clients' signatures on those forms using our digital signature tool, which is DigiSign. And then we'll talk about how you can turn in those documents to the staff within the SkySlope system. So at all times, you know exactly what's going on with your files. So let's dive into the platform here. All right, so on my screen, I have the McColly Real Estate demo account. Again, keep in mind I am working through a demo account today, so it might look slightly different for you when you're accessing your own account, but you can see it's fully branded to McColly Real Estate. Where we're going to be starting today is here in the working document section and moving counterclockwise throughout the platform, but focusing mainly on those 3 steps that I just mentioned before diving into a few extra tools that you can utilize in your day-to-day businesses. So for today's scenario, let's say I'm an agent and I'm working with a client of mine. His name is George, and he's looking to sell his property. Now, my first step as the agent in our 3-step process is to complete my forms using zip forms for George and his property that we're listing. Now, inside of SkySlope, you can actually integrate your zip forms account so you can access all of your forms without leaving our platform. Now, where you integrate that account is by clicking on your name in the upper right and going to the My Account section. And there's a tab dedicated to integrations here. Now, when you're in this section, you'll have the ability to enable the integration and then enter in your username and password for zip forms. That's definitely the first step in using zip forms within SkySlope. So again, that was below your name in the upper right in the My Account section. Now, back on the main page where I access my zip form documents in my zip form account to complete that first step is right here within working documents. Here in this section, I have a tab dedicated to zip forms. And as you can see, as soon as I have those credentials entered into, again, my Account section, I have access to all of my existing zip form transactions here. I can see any forms that are already included in my zip forms transactions. But on top of seeing what I've already created, I can even create my zip form plus transactions, fill out the address, my client's information and whatnot here within SkySlope to add all of the forms from my zip form library. But I can also open my zip form account directly. The really great thing about this integration with SkySlope and zip forms is that anything that you do in zip forms is reflected here in SkySlope, and anything that you do in SkySlope is reflected here in anything you do in SkySlope is reflected in zip forms, pardon me. So if we're focusing on that scenario that I mentioned, we're selling George's property, I need to start by creating my zip form transaction. Once I do that, it shows right here in the list. I have 29 Lagar Street, and I have the 3 forms that I pulled in from my zip form library. If I needed to add additional forms, maybe I forgot one, I can still access that here with Add Form and pull in any additional document. Now, as a best practice, we recommend filling out your cover sheet for zip forms. What that does is it automatically populates all of the fields, or majority of the fields, on your forms throughout the entire life cycle of this zip form transaction. So you can fill out that cover sheet. You can open up the forms themselves. Again, you can fill out the cover sheet like this and add all the terms of the agreement that you're working on. So I have this listing contract. Again, keep in mind it's just a demo document, but I'm working with George to list his property. And again, fill out the terms of this agreement as I typically would. Now again, just to reiterate, if you do this in zip forms, you can see all of those terms in SkySlope. And whatever we add here in SkySlope, when we save it, we'll be able to access this in zip forms. Now I'll go through that exact same process with all of the forms for this new listing for George, whether that's a lead paint disclosure, a listing contract, maybe an agency agreement. But once I complete that, I've completed my first step of completing my forms. So I'm ready to move into the second step of getting George's signature on his forms. To do that within SkySlope, I can select my various documents, and I can actually access DigiSign right here from the SkySlope system. Now what DigiSign is SkySlope's digital signature tool that's completely integrated within the SkySlope platform. Now what that means is that when you're sending documents out of SkySlope, when they're fully executed, they come right back into SkySlope. So our first step here is to select where we want the signed documents to go once they're fully executed. And I have 2 options here. I have a handful of addresses here. These may be deals that I'm already working on, already listings that I've made active, or pending files. But we're not quite at that step for George yet. We're just getting his listing contract signed. So I also, in DigiSign, have the option to select No Property here in the upper right-hand corner. Now, once I do that, I see my listing contract on the right-hand side here. I have the option to upload additional forms from my computer. Maybe I've scanned something to myself, or I have a document on my computer that I need to add into this packet for George. But I also have the ability to apply a template to this DigiSign document. Now, what that template in DigiSign does is it saves the placement of all of our signatures and initials on the documents that we are frequently sending out. So as a best practice in DigiSign, I'd recommend using these templates just to save yourself some time as an agent, but it's very, very easy to place those manually. So I'll walk through that process today. And here in the next screen, I see that I have myself, my contact info as the agent already entered, as well as my seller's information, Mr. George Clooney. Now, what's great about this is that seller information for George Clooney, that pulled in from my zip form transaction. So I don't have to retype his email or remember it or look back in my phone or anything like that. It automatically pulls in here. And then on the right-hand side, I can set up signing orders. Let's say I want to sign this document after George, make sure that he has all of his initials and signatures included, and then I review the document once he's fully signed it. I can set that order up. We can also sign the document at the same time if we're both up top in the Who Signs First section. Now, there may be some of you here on the call today who work on a team, or maybe you work with an assistant regularly. The good thing about this section here at the bottom is you can actually add other parties into this DigiSign document that only need to receive the fully executed copy. So in this case, once George and I sign, my assistant or my teammate would also receive a copy of that fully signed document. In the tool itself here, it's very, very similar to other digital signature tools that you may be familiar with. There's a handful of options here at the top to place on the document, like signatures and initials, dates, or even checkboxes. We can see our document here previewed large in the center. And of course, as the agent, I want to review everything and confirm that everything I already entered from zip forms on this document is accurate. Now, as I scroll through and I finish reviewing the first page, I see that there's my sections for my seller's initials. Now, again, I didn't use that DigiSign template, so I have to place these fields manually this time. And to do that, I simply single-click my tool up top for initials. And then I single-click the document where the initials would go. I can then resize this and select who is initialing in this area from the drop-down menu. So I have Mr. Clooney selling the property, so I have his initials here at the bottom. And scrolling to my second page, I have some areas to place his signature. So come here, select signature, single click my document, and then just drag that signature block in place. Now, the first time you're sending out these documents, you'll do this with any field you need to add to the document. In this case, I need a date here for George. I need a signature for myself as the agent. And then a date to place here. But keep in mind, after you do this one time, you have the ability to pull all of these fields in with that DigiSign template. So again, that process really saves you time to not have to place all of these blue blocks on the document by using DigiSign templates. Now, once I'm ready, I can send out at the top. We'll make sure George knows that these are his listing documents that we need him to please sign. And then we can send for signatures. Now, right away, we have this positive affirmation here. Woohoo, that was easy. And we have two options. Just to make sure that I can, quickly go through this signing process and get back to my day and helping all my clients, I do have the option to sign the document right away as the agent. And from here, I'm taken into a screen that asks me to confirm my name and then the signature style that I want to utilize. In this case, I'll select that second one, agree to the consumer disclosure, and then I'm taken into the form itself here. Now, of course, as the agent, I want to do a final check of all of the terms that I added in here. But as soon as I'm ready to actually sign the document, start here on the left, it automatically scrolls the document and pauses anywhere that I need to take an action. And a single click in that blue block, it dropped my signature in place, and I've completed signing. Once I submit, I'm taken right back here to the main section of DigiSign in the completed area. Now that document I just sent out, that lives here in the Sent tab, and I can actually see that I've signed the document. I'm still waiting on Mr. Clooney to sign, but I also have a few tools available to me on the right-hand side. If this is the very first time that I sent out this listing contract, I could create a template of the document. Again, that saves the placement for you of your signatures and initials. Maybe I misspelled George's email and I need to edit that and resend him the document. I can do that here in this section. I can even view a history of the signing process or void the document out and resend it if I need to. Now what we'll do here for just a moment is we'll switch gears and see what it looks like for our clients to sign the document. Again, as I'm going through this, please feel free to chat over any questions that you have in that Zoom chat window, and I'll circle back to them while I'm going through. Of course, we'll have an open Q&A session where everyone is unmuted at the very end of the training. Now here in my email, I will see an email from myself as the agent, but again, we're putting on our hat of being Mr. George Clooney. So he'll receive this email. It shows him any message that you've included, and he can then review and sign. Now, the great thing about this is oftentimes your clients are signing their documents from their phone. George, he may be out shooting another movie, and he can still access DigiSign right from his phone. He doesn't have to create a password, create an account. With a tap of his finger, he selects his signature and really walks through the same process that we've already gone through as the agent of reviewing the terms and selecting start on the left as soon as he's ready. And then to place his initials, again, a single click, and it takes him to the next placeholder here. Now, once your clients complete signing, they will have the ability to download their fully executed copies here. But again, if they're signing from their phone, they may not want this listing contract as a PDF on their phone. So it's also sent to them in an email that shows him that all parties have signed the document. Now, you as the agent, you will also receive this all signed email. So at all times, you know when your clients are executing those forms. Now back here in SkySlope, let me recap here for just a moment. The first step that we took was here in working documents, and we filled out our zip form contract. We then used DigiSign, SkySlope's digital signature tool, to have George and myself as the agent sign that listing contract. And in my 3-step process, I have one more step to go, and that's turning in my documents to the McColly staff. Now, where I do that is right in my property files. And again, we're moving counterclockwise. So I see the option for creating a listing. Now, George and I were working on selling his property. So I'll create this listing. And what happens is I'm first introduced to Sky. Sky is our listing file assistant who helps us walk step by step throughout the creation process of our file, starting with the address here. So I have 29 Lagar Street. The good news is that Sky's entire goal is to save us time as the agent. So if by chance in your process you have already posted this listing to the MLS, you can pull in some of that MLS data. But if you haven't and your process is to not have posted to the MLS at this point, that's absolutely fine. You just won't see this screen here. Now, what type of listing is this? I have a handful of options. Maybe I'm working on a new construction listing or just a residential listing. That property listing price that has pulled in from the MLS, I can edit this if I need to. Then I move forward into my listing and sales commission. Now here I can enter in a fixed percent or a flat rate. And I even have the ability to add other parties into this property file. So if I'm on a team and I need that, my teammate to access this file as well, I can add them here as a co-listing agent. Note how long the property is listed for. As an agent, I can even keep track of where my leads are coming from. So if I work with a lot of personal referrals or previous customers, I can actually capture that information and know really where my marketing efforts are taking me. But last step is just to confirm who is selling this property. That's Mr. George Clooney today. I do have the ability to add other parties. So if you're working with married couples or maybe business partners, you could add both contact info in here. But our last step is to confirm that all of that information that we've entered is accurate. Now, if it is, creating my listing takes me right into the property file itself. Now, the first place I go in the property file is right here on the checklist. Now, the checklist, this is where I'm actually able to see all of the different forms that are required. Notice in this bright red color, or in the, if applicable status, in the light blue color, for anything I may need to turn in throughout the life cycle of this file. Now, if this is where we are turning in our documentation, what I want to do here is talk about a few different ways that we can get the documents into the SkySlope system in this property file in the first place. If you by chance had a paper copy of a document that you scanned to yourself, you can attach that document right here to the checklist. But we also generate an email address for you. Now this email here at the top, we SkySlope create this for you every single time that you create a property file. It's typically based on the street name, street number at skyslope.com. But this email is unique to this specific file. So if I have those same paper copies of a document, maybe George and we met for coffee, he signed his document with a pen and paper, I can actually stack all of those documents in the scanner and scan them straight to this email address. They would all come here into the file. Now what I can also do is I can copy this email address, come into my email, and I can forward in documents to the file. Let's say Mr. Clooney here, he has sent me an email. Hi Taylor, excited to list another property with you. Here are the contracts he left with me to sign. We have this silly photo of George and a listing packet. Now rather than taking extra steps of downloading this to my computer, just to turn around and upload it into SkySlope, I can actually forward this email to my property-specific email address. Now what happens when I send are two things. My listing packet, that is stored in my file, but the entire email correspondence, that's saved as well. So I can start to build a communication log for myself as the agent automatically just by using that property-specific email address. Now back here in SkySlope on the checklist, we can see that nothing has changed yet. Those requirements are still there. That's because SkySlope will not turn any documents in on your behalf. We want to make sure that you have full control and that you are, when you're ready to turn in the documents, you have that capability. So where the documents will first go is right here into the Documents tab. This document section is really the working area for you, sort of like a virtual filing cabinet for anything pertaining to this file. And in this case, our listing packet, it's already arrived here for us. So again, there's a handful of ways to get documents into the system. But once you're ready to, quote, turn them into the staff or attach them to the checklist, we have a few different options. If I have nice, neat, separated attachments, I can always take them here by selecting them and assigning them to their specific checklist item. But what I can also do is I can actually split my packets apart. So in this case, George, he emailed me one large listing packet with multiple different documents. I can split that apart. It opens up a preview window here where I see my document on the right. And then I can just start to name these documents. And it actually pulls those required checklist items that are noted on the checklist. So I can select that document. Let's say it goes 8 pages. I can go 1 to 8. That's my listing agreement. I can then see the other documents I need to turn in. Maybe it's a lockbox. That's maybe just 1 page. And go through any different document that I need to submit. Now, once I do this and set the page ranges, I split and assign. And those 3 documents are then taken out of the packet and turned into their location right on the checklist. And coming back here, you can see that the statuses start to change. They're no longer red and required. They're yellow and in review, which means I have successfully just completed my 3rd and final step of turning in my documents to the staff. Now, what I'm going to do here is pause for just a moment. I know that everyone is muted. We'll keep everyone muted for now, just so that there's not too much background noise. But I want to give you a chance to chat over any questions that you have prior to moving forward with the rest of the training session. Okay, so there's a great question that came through. Can you review when you would use the assign button? Great question. So that assign button back in the documents tab, right here at the top, is one of our newer features. Oftentimes when agents are in the documents tab, they have different attachments here or different documents or PDFs included. And they don't want to have to go back to the checklist, then click attach on the checklist just to get that document. So what you can do is when you're looking at your list of documents here, let's say this listing agreement, I can take that and assign it to the listing agreement section on the checklist right within the documents tab itself. So that option for assign or even unassign is really beneficial when you have multiple attachments in your document section that you can assign and unassign without leaving this section. The whole goal is to have your workflow streamlined and less clicks around the platform, so to speak. All right, so there's no other questions that came through the chat. So we'll go ahead and move forward. Again, we'll have plenty of time at the very end to cover questions. But back here on the checklist, those statuses, they're in review, as we mentioned. Well, the good thing is that our staff can automatically see that we have submitted these files, this paperwork. We don't have to call them or text them, drive into the office. They can see our files automatically when we're attaching things to the checklist. And what they'll do is they'll start to check your documents for compliance and for completeness. Once they do that, they'll actually send you these status updates that show you a screenshot of whichever checklist that you had worked on. In this case, I have a demo checklist here that has a few items that have been marked in green and completed, which means I no longer need to focus on those documents. But I also have an agency agreement here that's been marked as incomplete. The good thing is that my staff, they'll tell me why. They'll leave these little comments for us. In this case, I have a missing signature on the 5th page that they'd like me to please update. The great thing about these emails is they help us stay on track with our files throughout the life cycle of the file itself, rather than needing to scramble at the end or go back to our client after they signed a document maybe a month ago and we have to ask for an updated signature. Our staff will send these to us and we can actually use DigiSign right from this email to get that updated signature. The great thing about using DigiSign from this email is that once something is signed, it automatically goes back into my SkySlope file once it's fully executed. So again, saving you time here with this send via DigiSign option. Now, if we come back here into SkySlope, we talked about really a new listing. Once we create those listings, we can go in and manage them, add more documents. But if we're moving to the left, we also have the option to create a transaction. Now, I'm not going to walk through that process today. It functions very similar to how the create listing option works. However, when you create a transaction, that's when you're working with a buyer who's had an offer accepted. So what we'll do is we'll hop here into the Manage Transactions section, and we'll just take a look at an existing transaction file. Right here at the top, I'll open up my pending file, and you can see it looks very, very similar to the listing file. We have some tabs across the top. The transaction information is just that basic detail for my file. Contacts are a little bit more extensive when you're in contract. There's also a full section for a breakdown of commission information that's a bit more extensive than just a fixed percent or a flat rate. So you could capture referrals here or even leave additional commission breakdown details if you have them. The checklist for the transaction side is exactly the same as the listing side. This is where we are actually turning in our documents. But in the Documents tab, again, that virtual filing cabinet for us, for anything that we want pertaining to this file, has a few extra tools available to you. If I'm working with, George and he's out shooting a movie and he's traveling in the Bahamas and he wants a copy of one of his documents, I can take that document and I can actually email him from the SkySlope system. The great thing here is that when I email him, he sees that this is coming from my personal email address. But when he responds, it actually goes right back to my personal email address. So I do not need to dig through SkySlope to find that email correspondence. But what's great is the property email address, that will automatically be CC'd. Again, trying to help with building that communication log automatically. Now, another thing that you can access here in the document section is DigiSign. Same thing as that email we just took a look at. When the DigiSign documents are sent here from the file, they come right back here into the file. And last but not least, we have this option to share documents. If I have multiple different documents or maybe disclosures that I want to share with another party, let's say the agent on the other side, I can actually select to share these documents. We can bundle them together here. Let's say these are just buyer docs, and create a link. And with this link, the client, or again, that other party, can actually open up that bundle that you just sent them. They can see all of your information, as well as every document that you included in that bundle. This is really great for sharing lots of documents that may be very large that you might not want to email over to a client. Now, moving into this next section, we have the log of the file. This is a digital footprint of every single thing that's going on in the system. So you can see time and date stamp showing who's doing what. Anytime you send an email or CC this property email address, those will also be stored in this log. Now, another thing that you can actually do with this email address is save text messages. I'm sure a handful of you are texting your clients. Well, what you can do is you can actually start a group text message on your phone with your client and this email address. Every single text message from that group will automatically document here in the SkySlope file. Now, just keep in mind, if you start veering off topic, you're talking about things outside of this transaction or outside of what you want saved in the file, just hop into another text message. Since once something is added into this log, it cannot be removed. And last but not least, we have the tasks section. For any of my to-do list people on the call, you like going through your day and crossing things off a list. What you can do is you can add individual tasks. Maybe you're scheduling your inspections or requesting repairs. You can add those tasks in here to the file. You can also import templates of tasks. Oftentimes you're going through the same, let's say 20 to 30 motions every single file. Well, rather than recreating the wheel, you can create a template of tasks and import those into your property files. The really great thing about these tasks is that you can sync them with your calendar, and you can also set up a daily email that's sent to you once a day, just showing you exactly what is due or overdue for that day. But that wraps up the transaction file itself. So just one more thing I want to point out prior to hopping into the Q&A portion of the training. That's this Access Archives section. Anytime your files close, you've been paid, and you've turned in all your completed documents, your files will go here to the Access Archives section for long-term storage. Once they're here, of course, you can still access them. Let's say it's tax season. They need to, your client is requesting a copy of a document. You can come here into the Access Archives, email that document out to them. You can even download all of your documents from any archives once you have them in here. But folks, again, we covered a lot of information. The one thing I want to make sure that you know is that we have here in the upper right-hand corner a little icon that has a headset. That's our support team. Our support team at SkySlope is in the office with us in Sacramento, California, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and 365 days a year. So every single night, weekend, holiday that you are probably or have from time to time worked as an agent, they're dedicated in our office to answer your questions. If you chat them, they have to respond within 10 seconds. If you call them, they have to pick up by the second ring. And if you email them, they have to reply within 20 minutes. Now, if they don't meet one of those 3 guarantees, they automatically send you a free Starbucks gift card. So no matter what time of the day it is, you know that you have someone to ask questions to with SkySlope support. But we also have an entire tutorial center. If you've been talking to your clients all day and you just want to sit back and watch a video or look through some written guides, you can view this tutorial center. Let's say I'm an agent and I browse articles and I want to remember how to create a listing with Sky. In this tutorial, again, there's a video right here at the top and then step-by-step instructions with images showing me exactly how I could create that listing. Now, every single thing that we talked about today and then some has a tutorial associated here. So definitely make sure to utilize our support team. But what I'll do now is I will give everyone the ability to unmute their microphones. And if you have any questions, please feel free to either voice those questions or even use that chat window. All right, so everyone has been unmuted. You can place yourself back on mute if you prefer to just use the chat window. But what we'll do now is open up the line for any questions. Perfect. So there's a handful of questions, or I guess one question coming through the chat. Sorry, I missed how to get to the tutorial section. That's a fantastic question. Definitely something I want to make sure everyone knows. So when you are in SkySlope, in the upper right-hand corner near where your name is, you'll see an icon here with a headset. Just click that icon and it takes you to this main page. If there's anything that you know that you want to learn more about, maybe that tasks section that I talked about, you could search that into this support hub and find the tutorials associated. But if you're not sure what to search, just scroll down a little bit in the support hub. There's the entire tutorial center where you can see all of the articles for being an agent. You could access articles about DigiSign. There's even a getting started section that has a great resource for you of a getting started guide for agents. This compiles a lot of different tutorials into one section that you can link to. But again, that was accessed by clicking this support icon up in the upper right-hand corner. All right, our next question is, how long do transactions remain in the archives? Are you able to add prior transactions to the archives? So great questions. The transactions will remain in the archives as long as you are a SkySlope client. We do not purge any data from the system, so they will stay in there, whether that's 2 years, 3 years, 7 years. They'll stay in your Access Archives section. However, for the second part of that question, you're not able to add or upload, I should say, prior transactions to the archives directly. They would have to be created and closed out by the McColly staff. Now, with that said, there is another location that you can store previous transactions. And that's back where we started in the beginning of this training in working documents. Here in the working documents section, we have an area dedicated to personal documents. Now, this personal document section is a storage area for you. It's sort of like your own personal Dropbox or Google Drive account. However, there is no storage limit. So you can upload anything you want here. What I would recommend for previous deals is maybe add a folder for the year, maybe subfolders for the addresses, or even based on your clients if you're working with the same customers over and over. And then you can upload all of your documents here into that personal document section for your correct folder. One thing to keep in mind is no one can access this personal documents other than yourself. It's a completely private storage area for you. Now, not only can you upload documents into your personal documents, you can also email documents into this personal documents section, just like you can email documents into the property file. Right here in the upper right, if you click your name, go to the My Account section. There is an email address listed here. Now, if you email documents to this email address, it should be your first and last name at skyslope.com. Those documents will upload into the personal documents section. So just a couple ways to get the documents in there, but a great place for you to store previous transactions since there's no storage limit. Another question, is the time zone automatically set up for new agents? Yes, your time zone will be set up based on the way that we configure your account when we set it up. However, you can also see what time zone your account is set to by clicking your name in the upper right, going right back into that My Account section, and you'll see a drop down here for time zone. If this is maybe incorrect, you can update that here. Just make sure to save your preferences as soon as you've completed. Now, another question, how about adding documents to the archives, not actual full transactions? So in the archives section, what we'll show here is each property file. So it will look very similar to this. It will have a property file listed, but the status would be closed and archived. Now in that section, you can't add documents, standalone documents. That would be in the personal document section. But you can go into your property files, even when they're archived, and add documents to the Documents tab or the checklist if you need to. Now, another thing that has come through the chat, and this is more of a statement that might be beneficial for everyone to see, is I can see that the personal documents section would be useful to track our commission statements by year, so we have everything in one place for tax purposes. I absolutely agree with that. If that's a great use for your personal documents section, again here in Working Docs, hang on to those in one centralized place so you're not digging around through your email or all the property files. Diane, that's a great point that you just referenced. All right, well, I do not see any other chats in that Zoom chat window, so we'll go ahead and wrap up for today. Again, thank you all so much for joining us. Have a wonderful afternoon. What we'll be doing is, what I'll be doing is I'll be sending over the recording of this webinar to the McColly staff. or then they can post that for you to access. So if you want to reference it again at a later date, feel free to do so. But if you have any questions once you dive in, you can also access the support team within your account. Again, thank you all so much. Have a wonderful afternoon and happy sky sloping.